on it. Just make sure, I don't like to get below about halfway full just so it doesn't get away from you, because if it sucks air, you're gonna start the process over. You may not think you're sucking anything out. There's a good chance you're just sucking air. If you had the system broke down as we have, you want the fluid to be clean as it's coming out. Be patient with it. Make sure you've allowed yourself enough time just so you do it right, and you only have to do it once. Welcome back to the channel. In the last video we did a complete teardown and inspection of an A60 surge brake actuator on this boat trailer. So if you haven't watched that, if you need to know something about that, be sure to check that video out. We'll leave a link in the description. So today, now that we've put everything back together, we're going to do a brake flush and a brake bleed. A couple of different ways you can do it. We're going to talk about them, show them some of the tools that we use, maybe some of the tools that might help you out to do a better brake flush and a brake bleed. So on hydraulic trailer brakes, whether you're using a surge brake actuator or electric over hydraulic actuator, it's pretty much the same thing as far as the bleed section of it. The only difference would be on your electric over hydraulic actuator, and some boat trailers come with that just like your standard trailer does. You can use the pump on that by depressing the brake control to push fluid down the line. I don't like doing that. You can overheat the pump. I prefer, whether you're doing a surge brake or electric over hydraulic brake, I prefer using a vacuum pump of some sorts to do it that way. I'm not a big fan of gravity bleeding. I'm not a big fan of trying to push the surge coupler in and out. I really like to do a vacuum bleed on it. You can get those pretty cheap today. You can buy a really nice one if you're doing high production or high volume. If you're just doing it for yourself, just occasional use, you can probably get away with a little cheaper one. We'll show you what we use. We'll show you a couple of different options out there and just show you how to use those and what to do. The big question is, when do you bleed your brakes and when do you flush them? Well, the only time you need to bleed them is if you've completely ran out of fluid, or you've had a leak, or you've had to open a line for whatever reason. Maybe you broke a brake hose. It's got to be bled any time that a connection has been broken. As far as flushing them, every 2 to 5 years is what most people say. I like to do mine every couple, just to make sure you don't have any water or any contaminants in the system. This trailer is going in and out of water. It's a boat trailer, so you are susceptible to get water in your brake fluid. Water and brake fluid don't do well together. Look it up. You can do all the science on that, but just take my word for it. They don't do well together, so you need to make sure there's no water in your brake fluid. So the first thing we're going to do on this is we're going to open the reservoir, take the plug out, and your master cylinder may look a little different than this. So this still has fluid in it. We're going to suck or evacuate all of that fluid out before we get started with the flush. Then we're going to refill with new fluid, and I'll show you what we use and a couple different ways to do that. So we're going to set up our system. So this one here, this is one, I'm not sponsored by this. This is a cheap, I'm sure it's an import. Ordered it online. It's very affordable. If you don't want a cheap import, then I'm going to show you a couple different options. They may be import too. Who knows, really, with the world we live in today. But we're going to use this. You do have to have an air compressor. So if you don't have an air compressor that can put out 40 to 70 psi continuously, this is not going to work for you. You'll have to use another tool that we'll show when we get to the back of the trailer here in a little bit. But if you have an air compressor, by all means, this is the quickest and easiest, and it's a pretty safe way to contain your fluid. It's pretty foolproof on there. So we're going to go ahead and hook this up. And like I said, you will need to regulate your air down. So if you do not have a regulator on your compressor, you would need to purchase that separately. So we're just going to stick this down in the reservoir and suck as much out as we can. Sounds like going to the dentist. If you're like me and have a phobia with the dentist, I apologize. We are pretty low there. I don't think we can get anything else out. Nope, that's it. So now we need to refill this with fluid. This unit here does come with a secondary reservoir. I think it's pretty handy. I have a different style. The only thing about this one, for a boat coupler like this is made to clamp onto the side of the reservoir. This is not going to clamp. You're going to have to kind of tilt it in. But I'm going to use it just to put some brake fluid in there. You can use a funnel. You don't have to use this. You just want to try not to spill it. So we're pretty close to the top. But what this is designed to do is kind of like feeding your gerbil or your hamster. You're going to put that in there. You're going to put a little trickle flow on there. And while you're sucking brake fluid out, it's going to be inputting brake fluid in there, so you don't have to go back and forth. Now, if you have somebody to help you that can watch this, because it's very important, if you suck too much brake fluid out and you suck air, you're basically having to start the process over. You're going to have to just keep going. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to hurt anything. You're just going to use a little extra time, a little extra brake fluid. So I do like the reservoir for that. I wish it fit better in there. If we end up using this one long term, and I'm going to put this to the test just to see, you know, if it's a junker right now for the DIYer, I think it'll do just fine. For a high volume shop, I don't know if it'll hold up. I'll show you the one we use, and there is definitely a difference between the two, and a little money difference, not a huge amount, but that's just a decision you need to make. Do your homework on that. So now that we've got brake fluid back in here, we've got our little nurse fluid reservoir that we're going to drip some in. We're going to head to the back of the trailer. I'm going to explain to you where to start, and then I'm going to show you a couple different tools, and then we're going to talk about another method. So go to the back of the trailer with me. So before we get started, let's talk a little bit more about the tools. If you've ever done an automobile, if you were trained like me back the old school way, you would take a bottle or a cup, run a hose down from the bleeder screw into that, take 2 people to do it. That works great in the automotive world. On this way, it doesn't work great because there's really no way to compress the surge brake system effectively. There is a method on the A60 underneath. You can use a flathead screwdriver and pump the master cylinder on there. If you want to do that, great. I'm not going to show how to do that because I hate it. I just prefer using this method. Like I said, again, this is not expensive to do it this way. I'm going to give you a couple different price options. So we have already showed you the I don't know if that's how you say it or not, but that's my good guess. Not sure what that means. I think that's kind of a car they've got in there. This, I think, online is in the $50-ish range. Again, like I said, if you had a high volume shop or you're using it a bunch, I don't know how well this would hold up long term, but it's not a complete junker just from looking at it. I have used it. It seems to work just fine. A low end purchase, sometimes you can pick these up in an automotive store. Just a handheld vacuum pump, but you have to make sure you get one that does have the brake bleed reservoir and adapter with it for it to work properly. And literally you put it on and you're going to hand pump it. So if you're needing to work on your grip strength, this will be the way that goes. It's just going to take some time, but these you can probably get, I bet, anywhere from $15 to $25. So it is a very affordable tool to get. And like I said, maybe you already own a vacuum pump. I rarely ever use this. I just check this one out to see if it sucked. And when it comes to brake bleeders, the more they suck, the better, I guess. So that's one product you can buy that you say, hey, this thing sucks. It's great. That's what you want. This is the one that we use a lot in the shop. It's made by Mighty Vac. And again, this is not sponsored by any of these. These were all purchased with our own money. I will tell you, this one is in the $150 to $200 range, depending on when and where you can find it. But between the two, you can just tell this one is built better than the Wizibilizo, or however you say it. This just seems to be, the structure on it's a little better. The catch reservoir is better. Pretty good tubing. It comes with several adapters. Both of them do, depending on what size bleeder screw you have. So it will fit a wide variety of trailers and automobiles. You can still use this on an automobile. We use it for both, but we have used this a lot. We put this through the paces. It has sucked a lot of fluid, and it's still doing great. I am going to use a cheaper one today just to show that, that it does work. I'm not going to use the hand pump because I don't think most people are going to use that unless you already have one. But I just wanted to make it available to you because in where we're at today, it's whatever fits your budget. You don't have to go out and spend an arm and a leg. You know, and if people beat you up in the comments for buying this and that, hey, they just ain't got nothing else better to do. They beat me up too. They can get over it and get on with it. Do what best fits you. Make sure you always do your homework. And this is just the way I do it. If you do it differently, that's great. Maybe we can share our ideas. The other method for flushing I would only do this if we were doing a complete tear down. Maybe we had to do a partial line replacement. Maybe we've had fittings off of it. We've had the calipers off of it. You can spray brake fluid in the line and blow it out with a low PSI compressed air, but you would need to make sure that those lines are not hooked up to the master cylinder or the calipers. You just want open line and hoses to do that method. So I would say, you know, I don't necessarily recommend that unless you just happen to have all the lines off for replacing a broke fitting or hose or something like that. So once you've got your tools, once you decide what you're going to use, before you do your brake flush and or your bleed, you need to use the bleeder screw that's farthest from the master cylinder. So on this trailer, the lines run down the driver's side, then cut across to the passenger side. It only has brakes on one axle, that being the front. That's the way they did it in the old days. You need to go the farthest away. So that may be your right rear axle, or it could be your left rear axle if the brakes are on the back. You want to do that. Then once you get that one done, then you will move to the next farthest, and then finally finish with the one that's closest to the master cylinder to make sure you get everything out, and to also make sure that you get all the air out. You always want, maybe you've done a flush, maybe it's only 2 or 3 years old, but you've had a caliper damaged, whether you let the pads go too far and you put a new caliper on it. Anytime you're replacing any component on here, I'm going to recommend you do a full flush. You're already there just to make sure that you don't have some contamination that may potentially lead to premature wear in that new component. So once you found the farthest brake bleeder screw, before you hook up your hose, I would make sure you may want to spray a little PB blaster or some type of penetrating oil on there to get it loosened up, get it cleaned up. Spend a little time, make sure you can get it free and not going to strip it out before you hook up your hose. So I've already done that on this one, so we are going to hook up the hose to the bleeder. So once that's on there, we're going to open it. So now that we've got it opened, then we're going to hook up our air compressor to the vacuum bleeder and let it go to work. While this is working, I am going to monitor the master cylinder up front, and you want to flush this out until all the dirty fluid is out and you see the same color of fluid going out of the caliper as you do going into the master cylinder. So as you can see it there, if you can capture that. It is a little icky. And I'm going to run back up front. Just going to check my fluid. Y'all can hang tight here. I'll be right back. And something else to note, if you open that bleeder and you don't have any fluid coming out, that means there is some corrosion in the port of the flared portion of the bleeder. You're going to need to take that bleeder out, clean that out. Something that works great for that is like a torch tip cleaner. It's got various sizes. You can clean that out. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and pull this out so you can just see that, just in case you run into that trouble. So I'm going to pull the bleeder out real quick. So in that bleeder, you have a hole there and there. You can shine a light in it. So that one is clear. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up or not. But so if you're having trouble, just go ahead and do that before you get too far into it. Hook back up. In this one, we are going to have a section of air because we did have the master cylinder off of this. So we have introduced air in between the master cylinder and existing fluid. So we're going to have a gap where we're not sucking any fluid. We're going to be sucking air for a little while until we draw that new fluid back. As you can see, we're starting to come in now. So that's why we had a little bit of a delay in between the old fluid and the new fluid. And you can look at your hose to make sure, if you're seeing a ton of bubbles in there, that's how you know you still got some air. You really kind of want to just, the fluid to be solid and not have a lot of bubbles in it. So again, whether you're using the nurse reservoir or you just keep an eye on it or you have somebody keeping an eye on it, just make sure, I don't like to get below about halfway full just so it doesn't get away from you, because if it sucks air, you're gonna start the process over. If you were to watch that line, I apologize for the air compressor, but we have to have air for the pump. While you're evacuating the fluid, you may get a big pause and you may not think you're sucking anything out. There's a good chance you're just sucking air if you had the system broke down as we have. One way to tell if you're moving anything as you watch the reservoir slowly decline in fluid level you know you're sucking it. Like on ours, we went from pretty clean for a second, we're sucking a lot of air, to a bunch more dirty stuff, probably pulling it from the opposite hub or caliper as we're pulling it across. So we're still moving. We went about probably one master cylinder, maybe a master cylinder and a quarter full of fluid through the system so far. As far as how much you're gonna have to do, you may have to go a couple master cylinders full, maybe 3 or 4, just until you get it clean. You want the fluid to be clean as it's coming out. Be patient with it, make sure you've allowed yourself enough time, just so you do it right, and you only have to do it once. So we've evacuated all the nasty fluid out of this side. We've got a good steady stream of clean fluid coming through, so we know we've got the air out. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten down that bleeder screw with the vacuum pump still running. Okay, we're tight, pull it off, kill the vacuum pump, rest your ears for a minute. Now we're gonna move on. This is just a single brake system, one axle, so we got one more caliper to do. That's all we're gonna do. If you have a tandem or if you have a triple, you may have all 4 or all 6 to do. So just rinse and repeat on moving from the farthest, working your way down to the closest master cylinder. Once you get all that done, button it back up, make sure your fluid is topped off, put your plug or your cap back in your reservoir, and you're good to go on that. You'll be good for another couple years unless you have a brake line break or something like that. Be sure to watch upcoming videos. We have several other steps to check. Like I said, this trailer is 19 years old, so we're doing a major maintenance and a major inspection on this. We'll be doing hubs, we'll be looking at the brake pads, stuff like that while we tear the hubs down, doing a bearing inspection. And then we're gonna show some places to look for corrosion on this specific axle and just kind of general overall on the trailer. So be sure to stick around, check those videos out. Check the links in the description below for any of the tools and products we use in this and our upcoming videos, or our past videos, not our upcoming videos. And we will see you down the road.